From my perspective, the comments from the Liberal candidate, Paul Chan, is absolutely astounding. He is a police officer, and he ought to know that when the CCP went out and put a bounty on anybody, including Canadians, that cannot be acceptable. That is intimidation at its worst. And yet, he played right into it. He advocated for people to bring him to the Chinese consulate to collect the bounty. In what universe is this normal?
That's Jenny Kwan from the NDP commenting on this story, and it's put a lot of pressure on Mark Carney because Mark Carney and the Liberals are under pressure to get rid of one of their candidates, Paul Chan, who at a Chinese language press conference in January encouraged people to take his political opponent, conservative Zhou Tai, to China's Toronto consulate and collect a $184,000 bounty on his head. Tai had been aggressively targeted by Hong Kong police. He's been critical of Beijing and the Chinese Communist Party. Let's now head over to Kevin Vuong, who's a former MP, was an MP for the Liberals, in fact, but before the 2021 election was dropped by his party. Kevin, welcome to the show. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Elias.
So you're of Chinese heritage, and first things first, I want you to tell our listeners, for those who are not familiar about your story, take them back in time. Tell our listeners what happened to you.
Sure. So in my 20s, I was falsely accused of the worst thing that you can be accused of in society today, which is sexual assault. And it was completely bogus, and the court withdrew it without any conditions, and I thought I could move on with my life. Little did I know, magically 4 days before the 2021 election, it resurfaces again. And the Liberal Party then, under Justin Trudeau, didn't care about due process or our justice system, and they revoked my membership. So this was 2 days after the news just magically resurfaced. So it only took them 2 days. And yet that was false. Now, let's fast forward now to Paul's situation here, something that he is not only confirmed to do, but he did it to media. And he keeps emphasizing, Elias, that he's a 28-year veteran, police veteran. Well, I guess he didn't read Section 464 of our criminal code that lays out distinctly that it is actually a criminal offense, Elias, to counsel an offense, even if it's not committed. So that makes him liable to the same punishment as someone who would attempt, in this case, to kidnap someone, because that's what they would have had to do to take Joe to the Consul General. I
just want to know, Kevin, do you believe what happened to you, that behind it all was Chinese foreign interference?
Absolutely. I mean, I was the MP for Toronto's Chinatown. 1 in 7 of my constituents are of Chinese heritage, as I am. It is most definitely for us, we would have been a priority target for the Chinese Communist Party. I mean, I've been outspoken like Joe in terms of standing up for Taiwan, for Hong Kong's democratic institutions, for speaking out against the very real and actual genocide against Uyghur Muslims that is continually being persecuted by the Chinese Communist Party.
So why do you think here in this case, and the calls are getting stronger, by the way, and on Mark Carney to do something about this candidate, why do you think he hasn't heeded these calls? It's been many days now this has been brewing. Why do you think he hasn't heeded any of those calls?
I think what we saw over the 44th Parliament was a Liberal Party that wanted to continue to turn a blind eye to Chinese foreign interference because it helped them. So I wouldn't be surprised if that is probably the driving factor. I will tell you, Elias, it is my prediction that they will eventually end up being dragged into doing the right thing and replacing him, but not after they've suffered, and I think rightfully so. This was Mark Carney's first leadership test, and he's failed it.
You know what? As I say that, Kevin, bear with me here. Why don't we listen to Mark Carney just being asked right now in Ontario about this story? Let's have a listen to what Mark Carney said.
Kenzie Gray with Global News. Paul Chang, one of your candidates in Markham, talked about turning over a Conservative candidate to the Chinese consulate to receive a bounty placed on him by the Chinese Communist Party. Can you explain why you've not dropped him as a Liberal candidate?
Thank you for the question. Look, the comments were were deeply offensive. This is a terrible lapse of judgment by Mr. Chang. He has apologized for those comments. He has apologized directly now to the person that he mentioned. Apologized directly to him yesterday. I've spoken to Mr. Chang as well over the course of the weekend to understand his position. He is a veteran policeman. Mr. Chang is a veteran policeman with more than a quarter century of service to his community. 28 years of defending rights in this community, and he will continue with his candidacy going forward, having made those apologies very clearly to the individual, to the community, and moving forward to serve.
So there, he's going to repeat the same answer in French, or try at least to repeat in French. We know about his French issues there. But Kevin, you just heard what Mark Carney said. He's sticking by Paul Chang. Says there's an apology there. You surprised that that was the response just now?
Yeah, I am. What does Paul have on the party? What does Paul have on Mark? Because their continued messaging, by the way, of this 28-year veteran, that makes it worse to me, Elias. This is a guy that should have known better. And so for them to continue to double down on this, I will reiterate, I think they're going to end up replacing him. But they're going to continue to be hurt by this, and rightfully so.
Kevin, what should our listeners know about just how deep Chinese foreign interference runs in Canada? I mean, obviously we had a foreign interference inquiry, and it almost seemed like nothing really came out of it. But you're in you know, maybe better than most, right? What should our listeners know on just how far and pervasive this is?
There was a National Security Intelligence Committee report, a confidential report that named 11 parliamentarians as having betrayed our country for personal and political gain. The Hague Commission was a whitewash exercise. It was a dog and pony show meant to make it look like the Liberals were doing something when they wanted to turn a blind eye. And I can tell you, and I can say this now that it has been published, the final report of the Hague Commission, that when I spoke with the Special Rapporteur, David Johnson, I was the only MP other than the leaders of the parties and all of the other MPs, Jenny Kwan, Michael Chung, that had publicly verified incidents of foreign interference. And when I went and I spoke to the Hague Commission, it was obvious to me, Elias, that their lawyers did not want to hear what I had to say. They weren't looking to get to the truth. They were just looking to pretend like they were doing something.
Is it fair to say...
And that is the issue.
Kevin,
that is the issue.
Is it fair to say that it ruined your political career? That's why you're not running in this election?
So I would say, I think first and foremost, Elias, I'm a new dad now. My daughter's 5.5 months old, and I want to be able to go home and have dinner with her every night. It was just 2 Saturdays ago. It was my first time I was around for her to learn how to sit. When she first rolled over, I was in Ottawa, and I was absent for other milestones. Now, let's be honest, it would have been a hard slog for me to win again as an independent. Not impossible, but hard, really hard. And for me, I want to be around for my daughter, and that's important for me first. But you also don't have to be in public office to make a public difference. I'm going to continue to fight for the country and for my city, and that includes speaking out against these clear... This isn't a lapse of judgment. It's not temporary. Okay, what Paul Chang did, I think, is representative of a much more significant and larger issue, and we're clearly seeing that to be representative of the Liberal Party writ large.
Kevin, thanks for coming on the show. I hear this is your first Quebec radio interview, so I thank you for coming on.
All right, thank you for having me.
Be well. That's Kevin Vuong, a former member of Parliament.